Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stratton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults, plus the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stratton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stratton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults, plus the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stretton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manopara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au.
Right, good evening all, and welcome to this June meeting of the City of Playford Council Assessment Panel. I take this opportunity to welcome members and staff and those who have joined us in the gallery this evening. I will do some introductions shortly, but I'll just start by reading our acknowledgement of country. We would like to acknowledge that this land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. The City of Playford would also like to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now, as we do have a gallery with us this evening, I'll just introduce the members of the panel to you. So I'll just start with online. We have Ms Cherie Gill and Mr Paul Micken who have joined us online, and then to my left we have Mr Aaron Curtis and Councillor Misty Norris, who's in the table just in front of me. My name's Jeff Parsons, I'm the presiding member. We are ably assisted by members of Council's administration tonight. We have Matt, our assessment manager, Layfam, manager of planning services, Helen, who's assisting us with IT, Kira Lee, assisting us with governance, and Sky, who's taking minutes for us this evening. So, good evening to you all. Now, we just have a few administrative items to move through just before we get to our item for consideration. So in terms of attendance tonight, members, we will note the apology that we've received from Adam Squires, and thank you to Cherie for stepping in for us as the Deputy Member. We really appreciate that. The confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. The last meeting was held on the 20th of February. All members have received a copy of those minutes. Is there someone prepared to move that those minutes be adopted? Paul, you're moving, thank you, and Aaron, I'll take you as the seconder, thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It's carried. Now, applications withdrawn tonight is nil. Declaration of interest. Does any member have any declaration of interest they would like to declare this evening? No? Applications for consideration for persons wishing to be heard is nil, and this does take us to our item for consideration this evening. So this is an application for warehouse and light industry development with associated advertisement, detention basin, car parking, landscaping and regulated and significant tree removal. The applicant is the Zupper Group, care of Future Urban, and it's located at 1467 Anglevale Road, Virginia, in the Rural Horticulture Zone, performance assessed and notified, and the recommendation is to refuse planning consent. Now members, or actually I'll just ask Leif if there's anything you'd like to run through as an introduction to the item.
Too much further than what's in the report. I think our position there is, yes, having a review of the application, it's considered that the land use is not consistent with the Rural Horticulture Zone. Also given the proposal scale and intensity is inconsistent with the zone. In terms of the associated car parking, I just thought I'd maybe provide a little bit of clarification on the road widening, just if it wasn't clear in the report. I guess that wasn't part of our assessment. It was just more background information in terms of what DIT originally said. And so that, I guess the acquisition of the land hasn't been taken into consideration, but in a hypothetical world, if it were to be, there would still be sufficient car parking was considered for the remaining of the site. So that was just, thought I'd just clarify that if there was any concerns. But yeah, car parking aside, it was the land use and scale intensity that we just didn't think met the intent of the rural horticulture zone.
No, thank you for that, Leif. So members, there were no representations as part of this item, but the applicant has requested an opportunity to be heard by the panel before we consider the item this evening, and our operating procedures grant me discretion as to whether or not we allow that to occur, and I have advised the applicant through Council's administration that I was happy to allow 5 minutes for the applicant to be heard by us this evening, particularly as the recommendation is to refuse consent. So, Greg, I understand you'll be speaking on behalf of the applicant, so if you'd just like to come up to the podium here, please. So should be ready for you to speak when you're ready, and with the microphone there, the members online will be able to hear you. So if you just, yeah, should be good to go.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Thank you, members of the panel. It's a very interesting application here, and one which I've had similar types of experiences with, both under the development plan and under the Planning and Design Code. For example, under the development plan, similar applications such as industry and warehousing were often non-complying development with specific exclusions within policy areas, etc. However, with the introduction of the Planning and Design Code, the policies are quite different, and I'll focus in my time purely on the zone, the rural horticultural zone policies. Particularly noting the comments that the land use is inappropriate. We've got, for example, DO2, which talks about the establishment of appropriately scaled industries for various uses like washing, processing, bottling, packaging primary produce, and servicing and supporting horticulture. So it's clear that this rural horticultural zone, unlike possibly the primary production zone, which was under the development plan, is clearly understanding and contemplating the use of land for horticulture and associated activities. Once again, PO 1.1 talks about productive value of horticultural land for a range of agricultural, intensive horticultural activities and associated value-adding processing, warehousing. Warehousing is one of the included land uses this evening, and distribution activities is supported, but also protected and maintained. And then it goes on to say the proliferation of other land uses that may be sensitive to those is avoided. So clearly PO 1.1 contemplates a land use such as that proposed this evening. PO 4.1 is instructive, small-scale industry, including beverage production, washing, processing, bottling and packaging activities. Then it goes on to say storage, warehousing, produce grading and packing, transport, distribution or similar activities provide opportunities for diversification and value adding to locally sourced primary production activities. So locally sourced is a very different test to on the same allotment, which may have been the case previously. But it's very clear and instructive here that the policies are saying we're looking for warehousing, etc., to support locally sourced primary production activities. Now, clearly we can't condition or provide an LMA to instruct and to inform that there's locally sourced primary production activities that are connected to this land. PO 4.2 is even more instructive in my opinion. It talks about an expansion of established small-scale or new large-scale industry, including beverage production, etc., as before, or similar activities. So warehouse industry, I think, is very reasonably to consider similar activities, are commensurate with the allotments which they're situated to mitigate impacts on the amenity of the land in other ownership and the character of the locality, or we've got an acoustic report, etc., to support the application. And then likewise, Part C of 4.2 talks about primarily, so that's very important, not exclusively, involves primary production, commodities sourced from the same allotment, but then it says and, or surrounding rural areas. So clearly these policies aren't saying that you can only have an industry type land use when it's on the same allotment. That may have been the case previously, but it's not now. So clearly it's saying here, surrounding rural areas. So it makes sense that somebody could drive down to get their tractor repaired in the industry building. They could have warehousing of crates for packing onions or potatoes. That's the land use that here is proposed here, and that will simply support the broader area. Now, PO 4.3 is likewise instructive, and it talks about land uses such as industry, which we've proposed, warehousing, which is proposed. A sited, designed and a scale that maintains rural function, well, I don't think the function is going to be negatively impacted, probably be improved, and character in a manner that respects landscape amenity. Now, it's important before you start talking about character, actually, well, what is the character of the locality? What's the character that these policies are seeking to retain? Well, pretty clearly on the southern side of the road, we've got very large buildings, including packaging, distribution, warehouse type buildings and an industry building within the locality, which are all in the order of 2,000 square metres each, and they're well within the locality at 21 Gawler Road, 20 metres southwest of the site, and likewise at 10 Gawler Road, an approximately 8 metre high building, 2,800 square metres. It's an industry building, and that's 150 metres southwest of the site. To the east, 24,000 square metres with polytunnels, glass houses, etc., on the adjoining site, which is comprised of 2 allotments. Now, I think it's quite reasonable to assume that the 24,000 square metres of structure and the over 5,000 square metres of buildings within the locality form part of this rural character. So, in my opinion, PO 4.3 actually will be achieved, and that's critical to the character. Now, I think I'm up with my 5 minutes. I am happy to take questions, but if I may just leave on, well, what if this application weren't to proceed? Is it just a lay down as air that it's a horticultural site? Well, the code also guides horticulture on the land, and it talks about 10-metre headlands with landscaping around the boundary, and also setbacks of 100 metres to sensitive receivers. And I assume that's probably for matters such as spray drift, etc. Now, if you were to apply those, we have a dwelling 35 metres northwest of the site, remembering there's 100 metre, and that's the dwelling, not the site of the dwelling, but the dwelling itself. 34 metres northwest, remembering that the code uses a DPF guide of 100 metres, and there's another dwelling 44 metres to the south. Remembering this is a triangular allotment with a 10-metre headland, we've got well under 1 hectare remaining for horticultural uses. So it's not simply well, this won't go ahead. It's perfect for polytunnels. It's going to look after itself. Well, that's actually not the case, and the application's far more complex than that. I'm happy to take questions, and I hope the consideration of those policies, the POs and the DOs has assisted the panel's deliberation.
Thank you for your submission, Greg. I appreciate that. Members, do you have any questions? I might perhaps look online first. Paul or Cherie, do you have any questions you'd like to pose? Paul, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Greg. I'm interested to know why this site was chosen rather than another in maybe a zone that was directly seeking this type of land use, like a employment zone, for example.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I can't speak for why it was chosen, but I'm confident that I have addressed the suitability of small-scale or large-scale industry and warehousing within this zone as directed by particularly PO 4.1, PO 4.2, PO 4.3 and DO 2 within the rural horticultural zone, which this is.
Yes, Paul.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's all. Thank you.
Yep. Sheree, do you have any questions you'd like to pose? No? Aaron, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, for your presentation. So I guess just interrogating, I guess, the policies that are specifically talking about primary production and value adding in the zone. I do agree that storage, warehousing and the like is clearly expressed, but all of the policies that you've spoken to do have a flavour and do very much talk about the nexus with primary production, value adding and the like. So therefore, one would approach the question of land use with that lens, and I guess the application as it's presented to us and as I understand it is for shedding in the nature of light industry and warehousing, but with no specific tenants in mind. So I guess the way I understand the application has been presented is that you would be seeking a consent for the buildings as they're proposed with the identified uses, but of such generality that any number of tenants could go in there, and I guess without any specificity in relation to what those occupants are, the proposed development could either be well at odds with a number of those performance outcomes or could be in alignment, but for the panel, I guess it would have no confidence or no level of confidence nor any control over whether those performance outcomes are ultimately met. So I guess I'm interested to hear further from you in relation to how you see that, because as you might understand, it could be that we end up getting in there businesses like it could be a mechanic, it could be an air conditioning fabrication, it could be any number of businesses that have no relationship at all with primary production, and as far as I see it, that would be an outcome that is contrary to the zone. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. It's always very difficult to tie a tenant to a planning consent. What happens when that tenant breaks a lease, goes out of business, sells the property? You need confidence with the land use, and I believe my read is that the code actually is seeking for the actual land use itself and who uses that land use to be more of an organic process, which is why it talks about locally sourced activities. Primarily, locally sourced was PO 4.1. 4.2, primarily commodities sourced from the same allotment or surrounding rural areas. It doesn't say and exclusively, it's or surrounding rural areas. Maybe the code specifically looks at this and says, well, we just cannot tie a tenant to a planning consent forever. Maybe there's some conditions which might be more powerful that the panel could look at imposing, which ties the land use to similar type activities or excludes certain activities. It might not be ideal for a CrossFit building, but it is a warehouse and it is light industry. So my read of the policies is that the actual policies are saying primarily locally sourced. Maybe someone comes from the outside the area, but I don't think we can actually specifically tie a tenant to a planning consent at this point in time.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I guess, do you accept though that if, for example, there wasn't a level of specificity about the nature of the occupants of the buildings, that there could be any number of tenants that go in there that are of a nature of land use that has no relationship to, I guess, the objects or the desired outcome of the zone?
Look, that is possible, but like I said, it may be a condition that you can tie into the land use may be effective, but I don't think we can condition particular tenants to the land use. But like I said, the code, I read the code that it's talking about surrounding rural areas primarily, talks primarily, not exclusively. And I hope to think that would actually happen by the fact and the nature of the location of it, the fact that it's not in a centre type zone. It's actually a land use which is proposed, and hopefully and preliminary information that the applicants received is there's people looking for the land use here for servicing equipment, maintaining equipment, glass houses, etc., irrigation, pumps and so on in the area, which would be then creating a tie to primary production type activities.
Do you have any questions, Misty? No. And I don't either. So thank you very much for your submissions, Greg. Appreciate that. You're welcome to remain in the gallery, obviously, and observe the decision-making process. So, members, do you have any questions you would like to pose to the administration? Leif is taking questions on this one this evening. Not seeing any hands, so we can always come back to questions to staff if we have any. Oh, sorry, Cherie. Yes, sorry. My apologies.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I can't see you, Leif, but I do have a question that hopefully you can assist with. I would just like to confirm so the current use of land, whether or not it's being used for any horticultural activities on the site, and whether there's been much further consideration about the actual productive value of the land that of the subject site, and staff's view on that.
But in terms of the current use, I guess, yeah, it's not, we wouldn't consider its use for horticultural purposes. It's more a residential, almost a rural living type arrangement. It's how I would describe its current use. In terms of its productive value, we didn't receive any further information on that. We just, I guess, assessed the application at hand of what the land use was proposed. So it didn't necessarily go into the productive value of that allotment.
Thank you. Paul?
Yes, just can you confirm what the land to the southwest of the site, the building I think might be number 11 Robert Road, Gawler Road, what that use is for, and when was that building constructed?
Thanks, Paul. I can definitely do that. So we have, just bear with me. So on 10 Anglevale Road, or Lot 20, which is the bigger of the two buildings on the western side of Roberts Road, that's been approved for a office and warehouse with attached glass house to be used for display and demonstration purposes and associated amenities. That was approved in 2019 with development approval granted in 2020, with then final stage in 2022. So that's been constructed. The warehouse and office in between those two, so on the corner of Roberts Road and the smaller allotment, that was given approval as a warehouse, office and canopy back in 2008, and it forms part of that wider allotment, which also features horticultural activities on site as well. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Aaron or Misty, do you have any? Yep, you do. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just interested to hear a bit further about, I guess, staff's view in terms of the sort of approach to land use assessment that we heard from Greg, that the code talks, I guess, generically about storage, warehousing, and the code, or perhaps that the approach to an assessment is that it shouldn't constrain or too tightly hold a particular land use to a particular, for example, tenant, especially maybe difficult where there isn't a tenant locked in. But what is your view in terms of how staff would approach that sort of question, given the policies in the zone that are very much flavoured in relation to uses that involve primary production, value adding, packing, bottling, storage and the like?
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I think the way we've approached it and reviewed was I think where you look at the rural horticulture zone, it does allow for those activities where they service the horticulture activities or in association with. I think the two examples close by, you can actually, I think they can have a direct relationship to horticultural activities, one being a glass house with a warehouse that's connected to it, and the other one being a warehouse on a larger allotment which undertakes horticultural activities. So I guess that's probably two good examples of where a size and scale of industry and or warehousing, when it's in association with, is, I guess, an appropriate form. In terms of this aspect, I guess when we're talking to, the servicing or providing a service to the vicinity or a part of the allotment, in this example, I don't think it does that, given that it is so open in terms of just being a warehouse or warehouse or industry. I think the point you made, there's no control. It could just be unrelated industry that moves in to what should be rural horticultural activities and/or warehouse or industry that directly services those activities of horticultural land uses.
All right, members, if we don't have any more questions for the administration, then it is now open to us to put forward our views and debate and discuss the matter. Obviously, I've heard from the applicant and we have all the documents that they have submitted. We have a very comprehensive report from the administration and the recommendation is for refusal. What are your views in respect of this item? Who would like to go first? Paul, I think I saw your hand up. Yes.
I can kick it off. I understand the applicant's interpretation regarding warehousing and light industry being envisaged uses, but my reading is that it's desired where they're ancillary to primary production. I place a lot of weight on 4.1, which talks about ancillary to primary production uses on the same or adjoining allotment, and also scale, which I'll come back to. I'm cognizant of the Geber case and the view there where a land use was the dominant use without primary production, that being a tourist accommodation. In this case, it's going to be warehousing and light industry. As Aaron points out, the type or the nature of which we don't know. It's speculative. And with no primary production being undertaken at all, I feel that that's totally at odds with that policy. And in any case, as I mentioned, it exceeds the 350 square metres, which I think, again, confirms the interpretation that warehousing and the like is ancillary to primary production, not the dominant use. I actually feel that the built form and car parking and paved area is out of character with the locality. I hear the applicant's argument about other large buildings, but as we've heard that they're located on the same allotment as primary production, albeit they are large, but they're not the dominant use. And I don't place a lot of weight on the argument about there being hectares of greenhouses to the east. I think that's horticulture, and certain types of horticulture, particularly in this locality, are located within greenhouses. And finally, the question about primary production value, that land could be used for horticulture. It could be hydroponic, so it doesn't actually, the soil quality, for example, isn't an important factor. It's the availability of horticultural land for that use, and I think that this proposal removes that opportunity. So I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Aaron, do you want to? Oh, Cherie, yes.
Thank you. So, yeah, this one required a bit of a deep dive into, I guess, the wording of the policies in this particular zone. And look, my reading, the way I went through it was, PO 1.1, and it talks about the productive value of the horticultural land for a range of agricultural or horticultural activities, won't read the whole thing, is supported, protected and maintained. And then my first question is, that's obvious that wherever there's land that has productive value for horticulture, it should be supported, protected and maintained. And then my first question was, just might sound silly, but just because it's in the zone, have we actually confirmed that value? So my mind went there as the first question, hence my question of staff. And then I went through to the next lot of POs. And then the ones that sort of got me thinking were the PO 4.1 to 4.3. And I feel that they read inconsistently and clear. The first one, 4.1, appears to indicate that it should be industry and warehousing should be ancillary to a primary production use. I think that is relatively clear. The next one, I think, muddies the water a little bit by referring to new large-scale industry. It does say that, but then there's no guidance in a DPF. But then, I guess notwithstanding that, the PO 4.3 then provides further guidance on scale and built form, as does further down PO 11.1 and 13.1. And I guess where I landed is that I'm not fully convinced that the land use itself is inappropriate, and I think the policies. The reading of the zone, I think the land use could be supported on a separate allotment to primary production activities. But for me, it's the scale of the development commensurate with the allotment, including the setbacks and the built form, and its impact on the character of that locality. It's repeated several times throughout the zone, the pleasant rural character and amenities. So I think for me, that's what did it for me in terms of the I'd be supporting the recommendation as the report recommends. So that's it from me. Thanks.
No, thank you. Ms. D?
Thank you. Look, the main thing I was going back to as well is PO 4.2. So obviously, and we've spoken about this at length already in regards to small scale or large scale industry. I get that it says storage and warehousing, but in terms of activities, again, we don't really know what is going in there at the moment. So that always held some concern. Whether it's related to primary production or not, we don't really know. In some instances, the locality that said, and I can't remember exactly where I read it, said that it was 19 metres from the street boundary, and then we've got 100 metres next to the residential land as well, so reasonably close. In terms of the car parking, it wasn't really maintaining rural character, and I know obviously a lot of residents that we have here as well have some concerns with chopping regulated and significant trees, so that's always an issue. I guess if we had a bit more of a scope of what was actually going in there, it would make, it would kind of help to weigh up whether it does sort of, I guess, enhance or sort of fit in with that whole rural horticulture zone and primary production. But I just don't think we have enough answers at the moment to really, I guess, support the current application. So I would be in support of the current recommendation as well.
Thank you. And Aaron.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. Look, I generally agree with most of the comments been said. I do agree with Cherie that I don't think the zone itself restricts development of this nature to land where it is already being used for primary production or horticulture. I think the zone does contemplate potentially a standalone use like this, but where it is aligned with primary production, and specifically, I guess, the words that Greg used earlier in relation to primarily, there is the word primarily, but that needs to be read in context of the whole of that performance outcome 4.2, which talks about the scale of the activity and the impact on the land, talks about realising efficiencies in primary production related storage, sorting, packaging, and then it says primarily involve primary production commodities sourced from the same allotment and or surrounding rural area. So I do think very much that storage and warehousing, if it is to be appropriate, needs to have a nexus with envisaged activities in the zone. I don't see that this proposal does that. So I would have to, there would have to be further information or particulars put in relation to who the tenants or the proposed tenants would be, and I think the panel would need that information. So on the information we have before us, I couldn't support the application. One option could be that the applicant be welcome to go away and review that aspect of the proposal. The other matters, I guess, that have been raised is around the scale and the appearance. I do agree very much that the extent of hard stand and pavement on the site is extensive, and it does appear to be at odds with the locality. There are some of the other sites that do have some pavement, but it does seem with the limited setbacks and limited landscaping to the street that there is a fairly substantial change. So I do think that aspect requires further consideration. The other matter is around the scale of the buildings. I guess the buildings have been broken up into smaller floor plates, which does help to, I guess, minimise their bulk and scale. When you consider the other buildings in the locality, and that's not just the two large buildings to the west, but also the greenhouses, there are typically quite large buildings in this locality, albeit that the greenhouses tend to be, not of a large height or scale. So I'm not necessarily thinking that the buildings are completely inappropriate, but I do think maybe with the size of the land that you're looking at, the number of buildings and the scale is probably in excess of what is appropriate. So I guess on balance, I think the proposal in its current form couldn't be supported. I think the applicant would be welcome to go away and review what they're presenting. I wouldn't have an issue with deferring the matter if the applicant wanted to go away and review it, but if they're wanting a decision based on the current proposal as presented, I couldn't support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Look, I have similar views, members, and try not to labour the point, but I think, first of all, I think the submissions that we've received from the applicant, I think, are well considered, and they do mount a good argument. But ultimately, it's an argument I couldn't agree with. And I think when I looked at the land use issue, the first step that I took was to look at the desired outcomes, which set the framework for the I guess within which the performance outcomes need to be interpreted, and they each speak about the importance of horticulture and primary production and associated industries, and about managing conflict. And I think within that context, when I look at the performance outcomes that some of which we've debated tonight, primarily 4.1, 4.2 and 4.3, I just read those as requiring some link with primary production, and I don't necessarily think that, as Sheree and Aaron have said, I don't think that link needs to be on the same allotment. I don't necessarily think, the link could be associated with other aspects of primary production rather than just the commodities themselves. But in this instance, there's no link that's provided, and that's what I found difficult to support. And I think also, like other members, just touching on the issues of scale, I agree with Aaron that the breaking up of the buildings is a positive aspect. But also, as Paul and other members have mentioned, I guess the height of those buildings is of concern and a bit different to what some of the surrounding greenhouses are, and the expansive amount of pavement and car parking is just not commonly seen in the locality, and the lack of landscaping too, although acknowledging that could easily be addressed by reserve matter if necessary, I don't think was ideal either. So ultimately it sounds as if we are all in agreement. Perhaps the only other thing I'll add was that I was satisfied it wasn't seriously a variance with the code in this instance. I didn't think the proposal was that far at odds, but I do think it's sufficiently at odds to warrant refusal. So if we are all in agreement, then you do have a recommendation in front of you that does enable the refusal of the application, and the rationale is set out in the recommendation. Is there any member got any comments in respect of that recommendation or prepared to move it? Aaron?
Yeah, I'd just comment that I guess obviously the list of reasons is well set out. I do question if the last two parts of the recommendation, which refer to development that is located and designed to mitigate adverse effects on or from neighbouring and proximate land uses and does not prejudice existing agricultural and horticultural activities. I guess I'm not sure whether this proposal would offend necessarily those, I guess, two policies. So I'd be less confident on that aspect. And I think we would have to be clear as to what or how those, how the development is not achieving those two effects, or not achieving those two outcomes, I should say. So I would be more inclined if the panel was to refuse the application to probably remove those two, or otherwise be clearer about what the concerns are.
How do other members feel about that? We're talking about parts 7 and 8. I think it is B7 and B8. Yeah. Paul.
Yes, I do agree with Aaron. I think that wasn't sufficient argument or detail relating in the officer's report relating to those two matters. So I'd be happy to. I'd be prepared to move it without those two items.
Okay, certainly. I think I saw Sheree nodding as well when Aaron was speaking. So yes,
Agree.
And I'm not seeing anyone else suggesting anything different. So perhaps just, I think Sky is already all over it. So we'll remove reference to part 7 and part 8. And Paul, you were prepared to move that with the removal of those. Is there someone prepared to second? Misty, thank you. That becomes the motion that the application is refused. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is carried unanimously. So for the benefit of those who have joined us, the application has been refused planning consent. There are potentially appeal options that might be available, and there are also other options to consider in terms of other types of proposals you might wish to put forward. So if you do have any questions around that, I'm sure the administration will be happy to help you the next business day, and we thank you very much for your attendance. So thank you. Now, members, we have to return to the remainder of our agenda. Now, we don't have any applications for consideration for Category 1. Might just ask Matt and Leif whether there's any information you'd like to provide us around appeals or deferred items. No? Is there any item of other business from panel members? No? Any item of other business from the staff? No? Okay. Remember, there are no confidential items and no items of planning policy, I'm going to assume, that members wish to discuss? No? Okay. In that case, I'm happy to declare the meeting closed at 6:43 p.m. Thank you to members for your attendance and detailed consideration of that item, and thank you very much to the staff for all your support. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au, and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stratton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults. Plus, the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stratton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.